Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Conversations with Mary Jane. Before we get started, a few words from our sponsors. I've got some exciting news to share. Did you know that you can have your hemp products tested in Maryland? I just sent over a new CBD product that I want to test to Atlantic Test Labs. Testing is safe, simple, and accurate with Atlantic, and you can find out more about having your hemp products tested by visiting atlantictestlabs.com and receive 10% off by using the code MJTalks10. Do you suffer from pain or chronic illness? Do you feel like you've tried everything with no results? If this sounds like you, James Highland, a holistic lifestyle coach, can help you. He works with people who've been suffering for decades up to newly diagnosed individuals. As a client of James for the last year, I have personally been a witness to the transformative work that he's been able to do with people. I started working with him to help with some food issues I was having, and within 3 months I was able to completely change my diet, get my blood work and my blood sugar back to normal. You can take back your health today by visiting James on Facebook or on Instagram and emailing him at james@sparkvisionnow.com. And last but not least is Pure Life Wellness. They're my hometown dispensary. You will catch me there every Tuesday for Industry Day to receive 25% off your purchase if you're a cannabis or restaurant or hospitality worker. Stop in to Pure Life today at 35 East Cross Street at the heart of Fed Hill. Now on to the show. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Conversations with Mary Jane. I'm Jill Franquelli, and today we have with us the one, the only, the Lord Bongtimore, also known as the Sultan of Sativa, also known as the Bobby Fischer of BHO, also known as the United Bakes of Donald Blunt. Did I fuck that one up? But I tried.
Oh man, I'm humbled. First of all, it's the president of the United Bakes of America, Donald Blunt.
That is it.
You know, there's also others, also known as Ned Sparks, also known as Rosin Hood, also known as Johnny Hash. What's up?
That is awesome.
Super excited to be here. Thank you.
You are welcome. So just to give a little color and context, yesterday I was on your podcast, and so tonight he's on mine. So we're going to kind of finish that conversation up where I get to interview Elliot. And I have been so interested in doing this actually since the minute I think I realized who you were. And I've just heard bits and pieces of your story throughout the last year and a half that I've been in the community. And I just think it is a great story of triumph and, you know, a true hero's journey. And so I'm so thankful that I get to interview you today and get to share that with everyone who you were before you were Lord Bongtimore.
Oh man, it's so humbling to hear it put in those types of terms. I definitely, depending on where we're going, I'm sure that in that time frame, I felt much more like a jester than a hero. But, you know, a king of my own castle for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's get to it. First of all, I really appreciate you coming through. Let's talk about it yesterday. You know, sharing your nonprofit with me. Wow, I was blown away. I was super excited to release the podcast today, but we're gonna hold up. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited about that too.
Yeah.
So it'll basically be like a two-parter.
That's right. We're going to do it joint together. We've moved some things around so that we'll be able to release it at the same time because I think it does the story justice to go from start to finish. So let's just dive right in. So the reason why I loved seeing you at Simple Sacrifice with our homeless and hungry friends and why I don't know if you saw like how moved I was, because it's my hope that every single person I encounter is on the other side with me one day. And so I feel like you have a story that starts with you were homeless one day, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how did that happen?
I was a junkie.
Yeah.
For lack of a better term. There was a point in my life where, you know, I had moved. Basically, my life was very hot. Mm-hmm. And so I just decided, I was like, all right, I'm leaving. Went to Atlantic City briefly, came back. I was still on fire, and went back up to the Northeast, went to Philly, had a place in South Philly I was renting a room at. Really didn't care to get a job, like was just struggling, and had nowhere to go. So
Yeah.
I couldn't come home. And, at 21, homeless was fine. There was a sick sense of freedom being on your skateboard begging for money every day
Yeah.
in a city as cool as Philadelphia.
Yeah. And how long were you technically homeless?
So there, probably like 4 or 5 months. Spent some time homeless here in Baltimore, on the southwest side, and then a little further up near Sandtown, Winchester area. Pretty much those were the two main areas in which I had spent time being homeless.
Yeah.
Here in Baltimore City, and then up in Philly.
So you and I kind of talked about this, and, I'm by no means an expert in any addiction psychology and anything like that. I was a child of an addict. You obviously have the experience. And
Also the child of an addict.
Yeah. So I think, I talked about the conversation on addiction needs to change, right? Like, it is not a criminal behavior. We need to start treating people with love and respect and getting the help they need. What age were you when you first tried a drug?
13.
Outside of cannabis, 13. Cannabis too.
I mean, you put cannabis in there. I mean, that's that was the conversation back then anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
It was early. I mean, I started smoking. You could say cigarettes, right? Cigarettes, because
that's very true.
I was looking for that escape, and that was probably the first time. I was like 11, stole Marlboro Red from my dad, ran off, and puffed that thing down, hacked it down. It was tough, but but there was a feeling that I got from it that I loved.
What was it about that feeling?
The escape,
Yeah.
just even momentary. I struggled, I think, early on in my life feeling like I fit in places and like I was a part of. So, I was kind of a lone wolf kid.
Yeah.
Even in team sports, I was able to kind of like blend, but it was never really my thing. It was like that's where when skateboarding came into play. It just.
And that's kind of a lone sport.
Yeah.
Right.
You can do it with your friends, but it's the commitment, the hours of at night in the garage while it's raining, practicing kickflips, like out in the front yard doing whatever. Do
you think you lacked connection growing up with others?
The thing is, it wasn't that I lacked connections, because I definitely have friends, and I knew, like, for me, being extroverted was like a great defense mechanism because I didn't have to. People didn't ask you what's wrong, right? It's easy to kind of like gloss over some of the inner nature and sharing who you are by being extroverted. I can kind of be like, and clown around a bit.
Yeah, you hide it well.
Yes.
Yes.
Because I also hated when people would ask me, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? You look sad. What's wrong? It's like
everything.
Yeah. Nothing that you can fix.
Yeah.
And throughout my life, I've different experiences, like taking different drugs. And I mean, I've always kind of looked at it as while the usage was definitely abusive, they kind of carried me through certain phases of my life. They helped me learn who I am, who I want to be, who I don't want to be, what I like people to say about me, what I don't like them to say, what I care and what I don't care about.
I think that's like an interesting mindset shift, because I'm sure everybody who's had an addiction, once they're through it, could say, these things made me who I am. And I think that's why you're here today.
Absolutely.
Because you're able to look at those moments, glean all the knowledge that you needed to, all the experience that you needed to take your next step. How did you get out of it? Like,
how did I get out of
addiction? How did you?
So I grew up around AA, 12-step programs just in general, right? My dad was, sorry to break his anonymity, but he would share it with you anyway. He was in and out of the room. I mean, he was clean for a real long time. And so I would always go to meetings. Like, I knew all about it, right? I had the whole standard I hate my dad, I'm not him kind of complex.
Yeah.
And it turned out like I was actually 100% like him. And when
like
I was
my mom.
going through it the worst, he was one of the main people that really understood, and he enabled in some ways, but both my parents did, and like anybody does, because it's like my view is skewed some, because like I know what my problems were, and the problems were that I let people love me to death, and I was manipulative, and like I knew what I needed to do to get what I needed to get through the day, because ultimately it was a very fearful process.
Yeah.
And at the end, I got arrested with like a quarter ounce of raw dope, like a mile down the street from my mom's house. I knew like that was it.
Yeah.
Like some shit had happened the day before I was able to like slime my way out of, and but some shit went down the next day, and I got locked up. Like my bail was so low for what the charges were and what I had, like nobody was going to bail me out. Anybody, like I called my mom, she said, nope. Like it was, we know you're safe in there.
Yeah.
Right. And mind you, the biggest factor I think when getting clean, because the being locked up was a part of the story, and was a huge contributing factor. And like literally, even today, when I think about putting a needle in me, right, all I think about is when I had to detox in jail. Like,
oh, I didn't even think about that.
So, are you familiar with the movie Requiem for a Dream?
Kind of.
So essentially, it's like some little junkies running around selling dope, doing dope. Things are good for a while. They, the shit gets fucked up.
Yeah.
And so in the end, I was, like I called everybody, right? My lawyer showed up. I never had been so happy to see that freaking guy in my life, until by the end of our conversation, I was like, so what's good? What's the process? You got my bag of stuff. Like, can I change now? Like, ready to get out of here. Mom sent you. We're good to go. And he said, ooh, actually, the route we're gonna take is gonna involve you staying here, and we'll try to get you a new bond hearing, see if we can get you out, maybe on PR or whatever, lower in the bond. Okay. Mind you, at this point, I'm detoxing. They don't give you anything in there for detoxing. I was mad because I knew they had methadone for the pregnant women, and I had MRSA at the time, which, for those who are unfamiliar, is a nasty staph infection, and it basically was like black, super hard scarring that I didn't quite let get attached to the skin, because dope head, picking at your scabs, and I was like pulling it out. And when I finally got it out, there was like these white strings attached to it, and I remember like throwing up, just like looking at it. I didn't really have anything to throw up. It was mostly just fluoride, water, and bile. And like because I had staph, they had to have me in a separate, isolated medical unit.
Because it's infectious, right?
Oh, it'll light the whole jail up. Everybody will have it. It spreads like crazy. And so in the medical unit, they had like the AC pumping the whole time, the lights on 24 hours a day. You're on a concrete slab, like, you got all four seasons going through your body at once, and you're just looking for any type semblance of like trying to feel good, because it's, and then you tack on all the, oh yeah, I'm in jail because of my own stupid shit.
Yeah.
And so I had to, when I got out, because I went to my bond hearing, they were like, lower it. We should raise it.
Yeah.
I looked at my lawyer, heated. Let somebody who was trying to bail me out. I didn't want him to for my own thing. And, I knew that I was going to the jig was up.
Yeah.
I couldn't, it was Mother's Day, 2011. I was allowed to come over for dinner, but I wasn't allowed to stay.
Yeah.
I was staying at this girl's house, and I remember shooting dope in my armpit, with a needle that she couldn't find a vein, but like there was a little blood in there. She couldn't find a vein. She gave up. I took her shit, went mirror, and I'm trying to like find a vein in my armpit because I'd already used them everywhere else. I'd tear my body up. And And I just remember thinking to myself, like, what the fuck am I doing right now? You know, and I was going to treatment the next day. They didn't want to let me in because I had nothing in my system. I said, I'm going to use all weekend. If I make it through the weekend, I'll see you guys Monday morning. Got a ride to facility on the Eastern Shore. Actually not too far from a couple of cultivators out there now. It was at the old Ravens training facility.
Oh, okay.
It was out on the water. It was nice. You know, but the difference was, like, I knew I was going to have to get clean for court and, like, be good because I was probably going to be on probation, right? So I really was not motivated for anything other than that. And I just was committed to, like, doing it differently. I've been to rehab a couple different times, you know, and I didn't even use on my way to, like, that morning I, like, just went in ill, ate, like, a half of Suboxone and went in and was like, whatever they tell me to do, I'm going to do it, you know, and I'm gonna keep that same desperation I had on the street, like, towards my recovery.
Yeah. I mean, I have I don't know how to formulate a couple of questions.
No, please. I'll try to help answer it as accordingly as possible.
Because my goal in this is for some parent, sister, sibling, friend who has a friend who's going through what you're going through, how to help, what not to do, and then
stop
also
loving them to death.
Stop loving them to death?
I mean, it's really hard because, you know, the disease of addiction, you know, we say chronic, progressive, fatal if not treated. It's hard because you want this person to just get it and stop killing themselves. Yeah. And you're in such a selfish mindset when using. For me, it's like, you know, I'm not hurting anybody else. I'm just hurting myself. And I hope that I die anyway. Yeah. And if I don't die, then at least I'm going to feel nothing from drugs. Yeah. And you get, like, so self-involved, like, you just have any and everything is a reason to use. And so I had struggled with that mindset before, but when you start talking about physical dependency, you start talking about, like, a totally different animal. You know? I mean, the way you need to breathe is how I needed to shoot dope. Yeah. You know? I don't think many people probably don't understand that level. It's very, and it's tough, and I feel like certain things, like, you know, if you're not through it, right, then it's hard to understand it. But nowadays, everybody has a family member that's an addict. Yeah, it's true. Everybody. And while, yes, the conversation of love definitely needs to change, because it's not just like, you know, while some actions may never be forgiven, I had to learn that the actor always can be. Yeah. And that's even if that's from self. Yeah. That doesn't always, you know, if I stole your grandmother's ring and pawned it during active addiction at a birthday party, you know, you'd probably be pretty pissed at me and, like, may not ever get over it. And when the universe decides that it's acceptable for me to apologize, obviously the apology involves not ever doing that again or replacing it in value, even though it's not invaluable. Yeah. You may not ever get over that because it was your grandma's, and your resentments are yours to hold. Yeah. But I have to be okay with the fact that, like, I know I'm living a different life now and I'm not the same dude. And, like, so while your impression may be of me from a different time, and my growth game is strong. Yeah. I actually love that you said that, because I think that's something we as humans don't focus on a lot, is the growth of another individual. And a lot of times the people around us keep us I mean, you back. Know, look, it was only when I had nothing and nobody, like, you know, it was go to rehab or die. Yeah. You know, it was pretty much like I knew that that I needed to really give it a go, and you know, because I only went to rehab to, like, try to appease my family members, right? Like, you know, the hardest thing is, like, you basically have to cut somebody off. I don't know anybody that it works differently, because, like, all of the love, there's an ability for the addict to manipulate. Yeah. We can play on those strings. I mean, it's, you know, it's embarrassing to admit, but it's like, you know, I would be damn near, like, fucking suicidal and like I need fucking money for drugs. Like, calling anybody and everybody I can. Yeah. Because that's what it was then. Yeah. And I didn't care. That was, people already knew that. Yeah. You know, so. But it's not
Do you think that you didn't have a choice at a certain point?
Well, when you physically need it,
Yeah.
it's to bridge. I wasn't willing to do the work that it took.
Yeah.
Given the only set of parameters to get clean that I knew, I didn't want to not smoke cannabis. I didn't want to not drink. It was like, in my mind, it was only
I
the
had to
one.
do all of it.
It was like, I just need to not shoot dope.
Yeah.
And I'm good to go, right? Like, I didn't learn until after I got clean, right? Because I went to that facility, I had a conversation halfway through, like, with moms, like, so, coming back, she's like, ooh, have they talked to you about a halfway house yet? And I'm like, no. She's like, well, you can't come back here. So I'm like, all right. So I go to a halfway house out in Salisbury. I got kicked out after like less than a week, not for using, but for not following directions.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
I feel like I could expect that.
So I'm there on my 23rd birthday in a town that I've never been, with people I don't know. And that was when I had to realize, like, oh, it's not the drugs. Like, and the whole time my dad's like, it's not the fucking drugs. You're the problem. Like, because he's loving life, throwing all that program shit at me.
Yeah.
Like,
That's what parents love.
Yeah. And so, like I said, it was like some intervention shit.
Yeah.
It's like, it has to be like, yo, you got to go get help and do the work, because it's not like the abstinence piece is dope.
Yeah.
But like, it's hard to stay the same person, live in the same, like, I remember like stealing a candy bar and like feeling like so guilty walking out of that fucking gas station while I was clean, because I was like, yo, you're not fucking shooting dope. Who are you? What are you doing? This isn't the life. I was very focused on spiritual principles. Like, I was doing a lot of writing and like work. Like, I was heavy in with my sponsor, like had a network. Like, it was really about like approaching staying clean with the same type of hustle and same drive as using.
Yeah.
Because like, you have to work to get high.
Yeah. It's true.
But like, at some point you trick yourself into thinking that it's easier work getting high than it is to like get clean and stay clean.
Yeah.
And like, I was abstinent all the way for like 2.5 years. And I moved back over on this side of the bridge for job promotion. And I just didn't get super connected with the fellowship here.
Yeah.
These kids were not the same. There were the areas in which I could go. Like, these were people that I didn't like growing up anyway, and I was having a hard time getting over some of my own shit.
Yeah.
And, opportunity met desire, started smoking cannabis again, and, that was 6 years ago.
Yeah.
I haven't taken more than a 500 milligram ibuprofen, as for pain or, like, any sort of opiate in almost 9 years.
Congrats. That's huge.
And I don't say that for credit. It's like,
no,
hey,
I'm going to give it to you though. Like, I know I've seen people try to do this. This is very hard.
It is. And most people die. And like, you kind of I had this survivor's guilt thing. Like, well, why me? Why did so-and-so die? Why did so-and-so die? And I'm still here, and you start comparing the list of sins, and versus, and it's like, all that's bullshit. Like, why somebody said, Elliot, why the fuck not you?
Yeah.
And it was that simple, like, damn, oh yeah, I'm not as good or as bad as I tell myself, right? Like, I'm not always the fucking hero and simultaneously the victim in my story every time.
Yeah.
And it's like, sometimes it just is.
We need I think a lot of that mindset just in general in the world.
Yeah.
I think we find a lot of people have this guilt, whatever it may be, mom's guilt, whatever it is. Everyone has this guilt that they're like dealing with, and they're trying to save everyone, save themselves, and being the villain and the victim.
Yeah,
and it will mess you up.
Like,
to do that.
And we, like, it's hard, but like, as you're growing through the process, like I look at, at nowadays, right? It's pretty similar as far as treatment options, right? Like, Suboxone, like standard 12-step, right? Like, which I don't want to knock for anybody, right? But people come in as addicts with a lot of trauma.
Yeah. This is not what's being addressed, right?
And
in any point of your, sorry to interrupt you, any point of your recovery, when you went to, how much time was actually spent on that? Like, what made you go to drugs that caused you to become addicted? Because some of us I'm just lucky. I just never went to that drug.
I was I was like kind of just a wild dude, and like when I was like 12 or 13, like I hooked up with some dudes that were all a little older than me.
Yeah.
And in order to be accepted, I was nice on a skateboard, so it was nothing for me. Like, I'd beat these dudes in games of skate. I wasn't scared to throw myself down stair sets. Mm-hmm. I was willing to punch somebody if they were talking too much. And so I was good to have around. And they all start experimenting with drugs. Like, I'm already smoking weed at the creek before 8th grade. Mm-hmm. And so it's nothing to be like smoking some weed or drinking a 40 with the homies.
Yeah.
And
did they ever address why you started that?
Yeah, so there was for me it was about feeling accepted. For me it was like it helped me to not feel so out of place in the world. Yeah. And I definitely had some experiences with other drugs like hallucinogens that really were more about trying to understand the universe, trying to understand myself, trying to like find something. Because I just didn't understand why I was here and why I was like so depressed, and like I've been in a couple psych wards, suicide attempts, while some probably haphazard, more cries for help than maybe a serious attempt. But the reality is, like, at some points I just didn't know what better to do.
Mm-hmm. Do you how's your family's relationship now?
It's at times strained.
Yeah.
My mom.
That's all families.
Yeah, I've joked about it before, but like, my mom sometimes will still like try to make the comparison that like my cannabis use is I'm still a junkie basically. Mm-hmm. She's like, well, you smoke weed all day every day. She's like, well, you used to shoot heroin all day every day. And I'm like, how do you even put all right, Jeff Sessions, how do you put those in the same context?
Yeah.
Right. Like, how is that even a conversation? I'm like, I'm not out here. Like, you don't have to be worried about me.
But you're not out doing the things that you were doing while you were shooting heroin every day, right?
Hell no.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it was insanity. Like, you never knew who might be coming by the house, like, at what hour of the day.
Yeah.
What type of, nefarious characters could potentially be coming around, who I pissed off at, or stole something from, or did the... I mean, it was a very stressful. The police are coming by, somebody overdosed at the house. Like, there were multiple people that overdosed at my mom's house. Like, and
rightfully so. She's a little like,
it's PTSD. It's a normal reaction to an abnormal amount of stress, right? But like at almost 9 years later, I've made my amends. Like I know who I am. Like, I know what I do and what type of program I work still to this day, because like you can't forget about all the work that you've done, the spiritual principles that you learn, the application of how to use those things. Like, shit as simple as when I'm feeling fucked up, like, I need to call somebody that knows me well so they can help me, they can call me on my bullshit, because I can lie to everybody, but I can't lie to myself.
Yeah.
And I need to be honest with people that are close to me so that they can call me on my shit. And they can help me when I, confirm what I already know. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I mean, we all should have a network like that that calls us on that. So let's talk about now, because this is where the magic starts to happen.
Yeah.
So you've come out of this. Now you're Lord Bongtimore. What are you doing with your life now?
Oh, so many things. It's like, where to begin? I don't like talking about some of these things because people...
You don't have to talk about whatever
people steal my shit. They like to try and steal the sauce. But right now, trying to work with a couple of people on some possible treatment programs, right? Like, to help people get out of addiction in maybe a non-traditional sense.
I love it.
You know, like a fucking halfway house, like, you know, long-term program where it's like, you know, you have guys that are like working together, like doing yoga together, like building bond together. Like,
I love this.
I mean, you have to think like, you know, these drugs that are out keep people, we spoke about it a little bit yesterday, they keep people in bondage. Like, you know, I'm supposed to be working on a high dose CBD syrup with another local guy in our community that everybody knows. And we're about to hit him off like little bottles of methadone and start like giving doses out at the clinic.
I love it.
And honestly, like, you know, fuck any of like the bullshit. If people are showing that they're tapering down off methadone, like I'll help, you know, like supplement their THC, you know, and CBD dosages through the roof so that they can get through that taper.
So what is the like general perception when you're talking of like AAA and recovery about cannabis use?
Oh, I mean, well, it's funny you say that, and I can't, obviously I'm not going to break anybody's anonymity,
but
of course. Like, you know, cannabis is medicine, and recently
do they think that though?
This is what I'm about to tell you. So, you know, recently a good friend of mine, who I know from the program, right, he tells me I'm an anomaly all the time. I'm not the norm, and that's true.
I agree.
It's true, and he hit me up. He was like, "Hey, can you go into some depth about CBD stuff with me? Can you give me some insight?" And so, like, I had like a whole hour-long conversation with him, right? And this is a guy who's just celebrated, I think, a decade clean a couple months ago. Complete abstinence, you know, unless something that was a doctor prescribed, as prescribed thing, you know. I mean, I
imagine that's even stressful to do.
And it can be, because it's like, I mean, if I have anxiety, right, which is something a lot of people say they have, you know, and I'm in recovery, like I probably shouldn't have I need to let my doctor know that I struggle with these types of issues so they don't give me Xanax, because I might fall back into my old way, you know what I mean? So so I gave him this whole spiel on CBD, and he was like, well, look, he was like, actually, my sponsor has been slacking lately with me because he didn't want to tell me, but he got his med card a little while back because he doesn't want to take the painkillers they were trying to prescribe him for a surgery, and he figured, you know, cannabis was a better alternative. And he has found ways to dose to where he's not just sitting there getting high all day, and like, you know, it's like he might take a little 5-10 milligram tablet for pain, you know, before he goes in, the same way you might take a you know, any of these other pills that people take for that. And so, like, I think that as we move forward, I mean, I know back when I was getting clean, we called it California clean. Because they let you could smoke on probation. You have your med card, right? Just like you can here in Maryland. A lot of people don't realize if you're on probation, you can smoke. Get your med card.
I've been asking that question. Thank you for answering.
Yeah, you can get I don't care who you are, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, go, you know, if you can't, like, you know, there's no excuse.
Yeah.
Like, somebody will help you get a med card. I've told people, if you know people that need it, let me know. We'll find a way to get them one. You know, whether I pay for it or whether I convince somebody else to pay for it.
So why, I think a lot of people don't understand maybe why people who have suffered with addiction in the past have such pain now. Like, you guys have physically done things to your body. And so in the end, it's while you're clean, you still have those effects from what you did, right?
Oh, yeah. That's that's like the heaviest hitting stuff for me today, like to deal with, is like when I deal with issues that are a result of the poor taking care of I didn't take care of myself. You know, it's like I got some raggedy ass teeth that I have problems with almost daily. And I mean, you tack on the fact that I already have always hated the dentist and have struggled with the freaking dentist. Like, it's not a good combo. Like, you know, when I go to get a standard, you know, blood draw for you, right? They hit the one vein and then they're, you know, fill up all the tubes off the one. Right? For me, they have to literally try to cut and paste using anywhere that they can possibly find a vein to fill up enough vials to even get 1 or 2 tests done. Like, I remember getting getting a Hep C test done, and I was like super scared because you don't know how many people have Hep C until you actually like get clean and you find out like, oh shit, everybody has Hep C.
Yeah.
You know, that's involved in this type of life. And my uncle died of Hep C when I was 11. So I was very scared of that. And like, she had to like literally stick me probably 20 different times. Like, I literally have to tell them like the last places I remembered veins working. You know, some of them have popped back out a little bit, but like, you know, I have scar tissue all over them because I would find a vein and just like follow it and tear it up until it wouldn't, you know.
The interesting thing is you're not alone in this.
No.
That feeling, because I feel every time I go to the doctor, having been obese my entire life, like I suffer those consequences daily, and I will never be able to enjoy food again and eat whatever I want because I did that.
Yeah.
Food was my addiction. So, you know, it's just.
Which you look great. I've loved following your journey this whole
much.
time. It is inspirational and like, man, I love it.
Thank you. And so I think all of us have that, and I feel the same way. I get so scared when I go to get my cholesterol or when liver functions test, like, my God, what have I done to myself? Because you realize, I think, you probably had the moment when, and I did, when they told me I was diabetic, I was scared to death. I knew that I was going to die because I couldn't stop eating sugar. And so, yeah, that
you got to take that shit one day at a time.
You do. It just changes you as a human, too. When you've been scared that way, change happens.
Yeah.
I think very easily. And I think you said that, like you were scared. You knew that this was it.
I knew that it was time to make changes. And I always try to speak as, like, kind of raw about it as possible because people have to understand, like, when you talk about people getting clean, you have to talk about it as what it is, the business of saving lives.
Yeah.
You know, and most people forget that it's like, you know, while you might be mad at your uncle living in the basement because he can't stop doing whatever it is that he's doing, smoking crack till 3 a.m, listening to 80s metal, right? And it's like, all you can think of is like, and you have to remember, like, yo, he's got to figure it out. And you got to find some way to help him figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, you know, what's the you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink?
Yep.
You got to find a way to make that motherfucker thirsty.
Yeah.
You know, because it
and
really.
sometimes cutting off resources is that's thirsty.
Usually the best way. And it's brutal and it's hard because they want to. I mean, think about when you were telling your body no to sugar.
Yeah.
Right? And
like
so every bit of you inside was like,
chocolate.
Just eat it. Eat it.
Donuts.
Right? And like, you know, it's not that I don't feel the things today that I used over back then because, you know, I do. Right? Like, there are times where I wanna use because I want to get outside of my body. Right? Like I still will. I'll go drink and maybe drink too much and you know, pass out and wake up the next day like knowing like I was totally just drinking just to fucking get drunk and not have to deal with any of the shit that's going on in my life. But like the reality is that like I know I have a choice.
Yeah.
Right. And even back then I had a choice. I just told myself I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
And you like get addicted to the life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like there's a sick love for that.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, I'm sure you could ask most all ex-addicts like that. But I know also, and I've said it at many events, that, like, with cannabis access, you know, I may not have ever thought that it gotten to the point of where the needle was required.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree with that.
It's like, you know, dabs back in 2008 were terrible. But, you know, if we could have had them probably, 50 years ago, had there not been the type of prohibition that we are still dealing with today.
Yeah. I mean, I know that if cannabis was legal, my mom would still be alive. Because you do have to deal with it the way that you have to deal. My mom had an addiction issue until we figure out scientifically what this is. Because it's not just you choosing to do this. Like, this becomes a physical thing. Until we do that, I don't care, smoke it all day long. Because you know what?
Yeah.
I know I'm going to see you tomorrow.
If I want to look like I belong on a Baltimore Greatest City in America bench, I can easily go buy a 500 milligram bottle of syrup and, like, you know, THC syrup and chug it and be passed out on the couch with my face in my lap.
Yeah.
But I know that the next day when I wake up, I'm still going to have my whole life.
Yeah.
because I'm doing it on my couch, and I don't have to then, from the minute I wake up, go and seek out.
Yeah, I think this is the beginning of such an interesting topic with opioid addiction, any addiction, and using cannabis.
Did you see Trump was donating his Q3 salary to ending opioid addiction?
Oh, is he?
Which, for those that don't know, the president makes $200,000 a year. 25% for one quarter would be $50,000. It's not like he could just find some presidential way to shut the company that makes these pills down, or, but in a theoretical world, But hey, $50,000.
Which is really just going to those pharmaceutical companies for research. So they just got like $50,000.
So they can take some extract of cannabis to then patent to give you that's not actually the medicine of the plant.
Yeah, which we need, right? We need the full medicine. Before we start to wrap up, I have just a couple more questions. Number one, I would love for you to offer a few words of advice for someone who's maybe in that moment you had where you knew you needed to change.
You're not alone.
Yeah.
I used to tell myself that I was alone and that nobody else felt this. And even now I can still tell myself that, but there's 7 billion people on the planet. Everybody, my feelings are not you. I'm sure felt the same feelings.
Exactly.
Right? My man over here, Sydney, not Jeff. He's probably felt some of the same feelings, right? The reality is, while it's scary, the change causes no pain, man. It's only our resistance to the change.
Yeah.
Right? We got to grow through some stuff. And I don't care who you are. This is for regular people too, non-addict people, right? See, I think that
we're all actually addicts.
Yes.
So I'll just say that
we
are.
We don't always choose to recognize that.
Correct.
Based on our own egos, and we like to sometimes act like we're better than other people.
Correct.
And the reality is that we are all people. The same things that cause you pain are probably similar to the same things that cause me pain. The things that make me feel good are probably the same things that make you feel good. And if somebody's out there struggling, they're using get a hold of me, call me, right? It's not anything for me to help. If I can't do something specifically, I can probably put you in touch with somebody who can.
Yeah, there's a great network. I think that's what's so cool about the cannabis community. If someone needs help, not me, not you, we'll ask questions.
And I still have a ton of connections to different rehabs and guys that will help get beds for people. It's it's getting cold out there, man. The winter is tough when you're homeless.
Yeah.
And for anybody's family members, it's don't love them to death. Cut them off. Don't give them any money. Don't, that you want to give them some food, give them some food, but don't give them an opportunity to take anything because they'll take it. And it's sad.
You still love your mom?
Oh.
Oh, yeah. Of course, right? So all moms, all dads.
Oh, yeah.
Your children
she
still
blames
love
herself still, and I have to tell them, this isn't a result of, something that you did per se, right? At the end of the day, nobody else put a needle in my arm.
Yeah.
Somebody helped me when I was learning how to do it, but that was only because I wanted to do it and I'd already made that decision.
Yeah.
And I took the action. Make a decision. When you make a decision, that implies action. That means if I say I'm going to quit smoking cigarettes, but then go out and buy a pack of cigarettes, I'm really not making a decision to quit smoking.
No. You're just saying it.
Only when I say I'm going to quit smoking, break my cigarettes, toss them, and then don't do it again, right? That's the amends to self. We don't feel like we're worth it in one way or another, and we let that be our reason to not do what we want to do or not do what we're meant to do.
Yeah. That's true. Not finding. I think probably when you sum it all up, and what I heard from you is, man, addiction probably starts because you are trying to be someone else. You're trying to fit in. You're trying to
learn to love ourselves
don't get to be
early.
You. Yeah. We don't have it set up to be that way, do we?
See, and some of the biggest, if I were to look at some of the biggest turning points, right, when things got real bad for me, right, are things that were some of the most painful memories for me when it comes to really looking for something to take me out of those feelings, right? It's I remember when I was in high school, just to give you a quick example, I was ready to drop out, right? Like I was depressed, I was in a band, so I played music. I was like in clubs drinking at like 16 till all hours of the night.
Wow.
Going to school the next morning, like, still half in the bag, like smoking weed on the way to school, like, and I just was over it, right? Like, people around me, like I was really experiencing, like people that I was close to had passed away. A couple guys had died from suicide, like overdose.
At 16.
Yeah, a girl I
Wow.
knew got shot. She set a dude up on a weird drug deal thing. Like, it's like you start seeing these things, and I'm like kind of living this fast life in high school, and like honestly, I was like, look, I told my parents, I'm like, look, I want to drop out, but like, I knew I had to play the game, right? I couldn't be like, I want to drop out and then be a bum, but I also didn't want to work, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, look, I want to drop out, but I'll go get my GED right away, and and start going to school. I want to go to like, I want to go to Full Sail, right, and learn how to record. At the time we were doing a lot of music stuff, and they took me to like this group therapy thing, right? And it was like me, my parents, and then the therapist, and like, they were all just going in on me, like going in, right? And I just remember like fucking being so mad and like so hurt and like crying and fucking just being like they don't fucking get it.
Yeah.
Like, they don't get who I am.
Yeah.
Right. And I still feel that shit from them today, right? As an entrepreneur, right? Like when you already know when you're down.
Yeah.
Right.
It's low.
And then you got everybody else kicking you in the back, like, yo, how are you're not making enough money? When are you gonna quit? What are you gonna do? Right? Like, and like I literally have like screamed like fucking never, right?
Yeah.
Because it's the same kind of thing, right? It's that grit, it's the mentality.
It's my favorite word, grit.
It's
you
like
got it.
Like, it is hard to be an addict, right? Like, but those skills that I utilize to like, for negative in my life, I found a way to like utilize the laws of polarity and turn them into like positive attributes.
I mean, I think the forces of good and supposed evil are kind of the same. It's
Absolutely.
how you harness and its intention behind what you're doing. In fact, I will say the best entrepreneurs I've ever met are those who've been on the other side of the law.
Yeah, I mean,
You know?
look at Joseph Kennedy, man, bootlegger.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously his kids have gotten killed, but still, I mean, it was the Kennedys are an epic family.
Yeah, started out that way. Well, Elliot, I'm so thankful we got to
thank
meet
you.
today.
Thank you.
And you can watch at Talk About It to learn a little bit more about how we met.
Yes.
And a little bit more about me. But here's what I want to say. Elliot, I appreciate you every day for being the exact opposite of who I am as a human, because you are needed. And your story, there's someone who's going to hear this. And I just hope that they take that first step.
Oh, yes,
that they like reach out to you. Literally.
Oh, yes. Like I said, my DM is open anytime.
Yep. Give us your handle so people know how to get a hold of you.
Lord, Lord, Bongtimore, Bongtimore.
Yep.
On Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Reddit. It's just at Bongtimore. If nobody told you they love you today, I do. And please reach out, because I will do whatever I can to help, including sharing meds. And I don't care, because this is a human thing. It's not about it's about morality.
Yeah.
Not legality.
A lot of the most legal things are the most immoral things that take place in this world. And I will leave it on that, because that will take us down a whole nother road.
I won't even start. I was going to spit some stuff out there, but I just decided not to.
Well, thank you for tuning in to
thank you.
another episode of Conversations with Mary Jane. Thank you, Lord Bongtimore, for being here today.
Thank you for having
Have an
me.
amazing day, and we will see you next time.